we got some kickoff times to talk about. First 3 weeks of the season are set, at least for the games that are going to be on ESPN and all of its places. And I am here to tell you, if you have not, we might should have a May 31st Festivus Day. Because I kind of feel like there's some airing of grievances that might be coming.
I got a lot of problems with you people.
On this final day of the month of May. Let's start.
I'm going to drive up to Oxford and see if Richard can pin me to the ground for the feats of strength.
I'd have to kick you first. I'd have to do something to get you on the ground and then try to pin you.
Gosh, that's rough. All right.
I mean, I'm just thinking through it. Yeah. Let's start with Mississippi State. We have 5 of the 12 games for Mississippi State that have kickoff times. And I'll explain why in just a sec. Well, I'll explain why right now. We know the Egg Bowl. How about the breaking news last week, guys? I know you covered it in great detail.
Yeah, we talked about that.
The breaking news that the Egg Bowl is going to kick off at 6:30 Central Time on Thanksgiving night. Shocker!
I trolled Hey Dad because I started with the Ron Burgundy, I need your attention. That thing where he jumps in the pool. And I was like, wait, just huge news that broke today. And Hey Dad knew we were going to start with the Egg Bowl Thanksgiving thing. And then you can see his face changing like, did I miss something?
What's going on?
Like I thought I'd missed something.
Yeah, and then no, it's...
He got me.
Because apparently we didn't know that the Egg Bowl was going to be on Thanksgiving night.
You're like that punk kid today on Highway 12 who gave me the whole, hey, roll down your window thing. And when I did, he just rolled his back up. I was like, you son of a...
Better than a water balloon.
Better than a water balloon. I thought of Richard when it happened. I was like, if I get water ballooned here, I'm going to be really mad.
Gonna be mad, but boy, will I have a story to tell.
Borky's next. They're targeting us.
So we've got 5 kickoff times for Mississippi State. Here's why. They pre-announced the Egg Bowl because they pre-announce specialty games, and that kind of qualifies as a specialty game for ESPN. Schools are allowed to set and announce the time of their ESPN Plus /SEC Network Plus game. And because that's not one of Mississippi State's first 3 of the year, we got that as kind of a bonus time. And then we got the first 3 games of the year that are on ESPN's family of networks to start. So let's go reverse order here. We know the Egg Bowl's at 6:30. The week before that, I'll be honest, I guess I need to pull up that entire November 18th schedule. I'm surprised that this is the streaming game for Mississippi State.
Me
SEC
too.
SEC Network Plus, ESPN Plus, Southern Miss in Starkville the weekend before Thanksgiving, an 11 a.m. kickoff for that game, streaming only. I thought that would be a linear TV game. I
did too. My only thought process there is that State wanted to control the time of that game and get it at 11 so they can get it over with and begin the rest and rehabilitation process as quickly as possible to get ready for Thursday's kickoff. You know, you sort of cross your fingers that Ole Miss gets a 6:30, 7 o'clock kick for ULM.
Yeah. I guess the difference this year for Ole Miss is they are at home as opposed to being on the road like they were in Fayetteville with a night kick a year ago.
But that's the weekend of garbage in the SEC. I'm surprised the league would not want that game
that's
not
a better
on
game
streaming
than some.
because, again, Louisiana
Much
Monroe
better
at
game
Ole
than
Miss. Georgia's at Tennessee that weekend, though. Chattanooga, Alabama, Abilene Christian, Texas A&M. I can't believe they didn't want to assign a slot for that game.
Yeah.
I mean, my guess is that outside of the conference games, I don't think the conference would allow State to say, hey, we want to play Alabama at 6 on SEC Network Plus. But those 4 non-conference games, my guess the teams really do have control, and they're like, this is what we want. That's what you got to have.
No, they don't get control on which game. ESPN, through its television deal, decides which game is going to be the streaming game. There may be some input, but the school does not get to decide which of its non-conference games will be the streaming game. But the school does get to decide what the kickoff time is going to be. which is why we perhaps will need some airing of grievances when we get to Ole Miss's schedule in just a moment. All right, so we know the last 2 of the year for Mississippi State. We know the first 3 of the year. Bulldogs will open the season Saturday, September 2nd, SEC Network, Southeastern Louisiana, 3 p.m. in Starkville. That'll be warm.
Well, Grandma, bring the refrigerator into the living room and let's get set to sweat.
For what it's worth, other games on around that time, UMass and Auburn getting the ESPN treatment at 2:30. Help me out with that one.
You freeze.
Yeah.
You freeze back in the conference.
But
got a storyline.
Simple as that.
He moves the needle that much in week 1 to get ESPN at 2:30?
Yes.
I
got
hold
where
on.
they're coming from.
Hold on. In the ESPN framework, ESPN does not place a ton of value on that 2:30, 3 o'clock window on ESPN. Okay. They place a ton of value on 11 a.m. They place a ton of value on their prime time and their late night kick games, but that's been kind of an idle window. That's been the spot that CBS has always placed the premium on. The SEC places a premium on, but that's not necessarily ESPN's biggest window.
Boise State, Washington on ABC at 2:30. That one's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of garbage. Western Carolina, Arkansas in the SEC. That's it so far in terms of games that have been decided that are noteworthy at that time.
Week 2, also in Starkville. The Arizona Wildcats making the return trip. I mean, this is just like a relatively early game considering when it kicked a year ago out on the in the southwestern portion of the United States. 6:30, SEC Network. That's going to be your Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, Cole Kubelik game in Week 2 in Starkville. It's a night game in Week 2. That's good stuff.
It is, but again, I'm kind of surprised. I thought State would have tried to push that game to be in the afternoon to really sweat Arizona out of there.
They're coming from a place where it's 112.
You and I know. You know it's different.
We going dry
you know
heat?
that
Come on.
We are going dry heat. You know that August and September humidity is not what they get out in Arizona. You know it.
You think you're sweating on a team that's going to do fall camp in Tucson?
Yeah. It's
They're
hot out
indoors
there,
the whole time.
Brother, it is
They're
hot.
indoors the whole time.
Other
Tucson,
game
Arizona.
on that time, by the way, do you guys know the other game that is during that time?
I believe that would be the Alabama Crimson
Texas.
Tide and the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad.
Well, you know,
I heard what you said just a second ago. You said, I feel like State would push for that. I don't think I'm getting through to you. There's no push that schools have. ESPN is writing a how big is the check?
60?
Still. There's plenty of games.
60 million times 14.
You can help some schools out. You can give some people something they want.
Nah, that's not how that works. September 16th. Those LSU Fighting Tigers making their way to Starkville for an ESPN game. We know, again, ESPN places a large value on this time slot.
And rightfully so. They rate really well. If you want eyeballs on Mississippi State football, if that's what you care about, you're going to get them.
Coming out of College Game Day, a stripe-out Saturday in Starkville, alternating maroon and white stripes at Davis Wade Stadium, 11 a.m. for the Bayou Bengals and the Bulldogs from Mississippi State.
Stripe out is such a waste of time. Never works. They should white out LSU and wear white and make LSU wear purple at 11 a.m. That's the way you should go. But they won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the thing that sucks. It's like you spend the whole offseason, you're like, oh, man, that LSU game should be awesome. State should be 2-0, and then you look at it, it's like it's 11 a.m. You're just like, it just takes some of the air out of the balloon for you.
Yeah.
So
we talked about it during 100 Teams, hey, Dad, that game would or could have been, it might still be, but was setting up to be the first real, true, every butt-in-seat sellout in years. And now it may not be because of kickoff time.
Yeah, it's possible.
You guys are going to go, come on, Richard. True or false? The crowd for the Arizona game in Week 2 with a 6:30 kickoff will be larger than the crowd for LSU in Week 3 with an 11:30 a.m. kickoff. Hold on.
It's 11
think about it.
No,
think about
no way. No chance. No chance. LSU will bring more people than Arizona.
No, they don't. LSU fans don't travel to Starkville. They don't.
Yes, they do.
They do not.
They didn't 2 years. They didn't 2 years ago because they were terrible. But in 2019, there were a ton of LSU fans there. In 2017, a ton of LSU fans there.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't think
there's
I
a
agree
lot
with
of
you,
when you talk about travel, there are a ton of LSU fans in this state who can't get to Tiger Stadium weekly, but they can make that trip to Starkville to see their Tigers every 2 years. Then they do.
I understand that. Okay. All right, so those are your 5 kickoff times that we have for Mississippi State. We have 4 so far for Ole Miss, and I guess it'll stay that way until we get to about Week 2 of the season. So, Egg Bowl, we know, on the road in Starkville, 6:30, Thanksgiving night. Let's just start with the opener.
Yeah.
Ole Miss's ESPN Plus SEC Network Plus game is the season opener against Mercer, the Mercer Bears, with a kickoff time of 1 p.m. inside Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. This was the reason that I said we probably needed the whole airing of grievances thing, because my guess is Ole Miss fans have got plenty of grievance about this. Because here's the deal. This is not new news. When it was announced 2 or 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was, that every team in the SEC would have one streaming game per year as they continue to try and build up the online habits and the subscriber base and all those things, the caveat there was the home team would get to decide the kickoff time. When you have a game late in the year, like Mississippi State against Southern Miss, you're generally going to pick an earlier kickoff time. 11, 1, something like that. Daylight gives people time to get in and get out same day, gives you time to get ready for the next week's game, all of those things. When you have the option to choose the time that you kick off the opening weekend of the season and you choose 1 p.m., your fans are left scratching their heads. And that's the nicest thing, nicest way to say it. So a couple of questions. Number one, this game being at 1 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock costs Ole Miss how many butts in seats?
Thousands.
10,000?
Maybe even more. I'm in a couple group messages, one of which has a dozen Ole Miss alums in it. And all the group message is talking about Ole Miss sports. It's like the exclusive conversation. Every single one of them. These are guys that don't miss games. They've got families, they bring them. They don't miss games. Every single one of them not only is mad, I'm not going. Not driving up from Jackson, which is where most of them live, to sit and watch the team play Mercer on September 2nd at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They're not doing it. These are diehards, and it's anecdotal, but these are diehards that are like, I'm good, not going, and I believe them. They'll watch it with me.
So, Vaught-Hemingway seats 65,000, give or take.
Was it 64-38 or whatever?
Yeah, whatever. Give or take 65,000. Over or under 45,000?
Under.
Hey, Dad?
Oof. Yeah, that sounds right.
They'll report a number higher.
It's just too hot, man.
Over or under 40,000? You think that's about the right number in terms of actual people in the stadium? 40,000?
Because the student section will be full for 10 game minutes.
No, it won't.
They might, but they'll clear out very, very shortly after. Mike is right on the text line. I've talked to a bunch of people today about this. It is a gigantic middle finger to the fans. That's what it is. That's exclusively what it is. It is a gigantic 4-letter word U to the fans. These are people that pay ridiculous amounts of money to buy the tickets to go to these games. And as we talk about all the time, even though the Mercer weekend's not the LSU weekend, if you don't live in Oxford, it's expensive to get to Oxford. You got to fill up your car with gas, which is getting cheaper, but it's still not cheap. You got to pay to park unless you get there super early to get one of the free lots. It's an expensive day. It's a hard day, especially if you've got a family. If you've got a wife and 2 kids, adds up quick even for the Mercer game.
Sure it does. Yeah, sure it does.
And it would be worth it, more worth it, if you weren't baking in the 2 o'clock in the second quarter of a pathetic football game in the Mississippi September sun, which is just devastating and brutal if you're sitting out there in it.
It would be more expensive for most people if the game was at 6 o'clock, because now you're talking about spending an extra night or whatever. Or
just late night drive, which is awfully inconvenient.
Whatever. So, I don't know that. I'm doing some deductive reasoning here, some educated speculating here. Keith Carter wants people in the stadium. Keith Carter's a smart enough guy to know that the crowd would be larger for a 6 p.m. kickoff than for a 1 p.m. kickoff for the season opener. Keith Carter knows that with more people in the stands, especially on a hot day, more concessions are sold. Like they're just all the reasons that you prefer a night game, especially on the first week of the season. So the deductive reasoning piece here is Keith Carter didn't make this decision. I mean, ultimately he made the decision or had to sign off on the decision because he's the AD. I don't think Glenn Boyce, the chancellor of the university, is getting involved with what time you kick off the game. I don't think that's something that he's going to concern himself with. His presidential skybox is going to be the same temperature with the air conditioned going, whether it kicks off at 1 o'clock or 6 o'clock. He's going to, that would be micromanaging to the nth degree. That wouldn't make any sense. I don't think the marketing department gets to pick the time of the games. I mean, as much as they would love to. And you know what? If the marketing department did get to pick the time of the game, you know what they'd pick? They'd pick a night game. Because 1, the atmosphere is better at night. 2, you would actually get to use those flashing lights in the fourth quarter of the game. And 3, there'll be more people there. And when there are more people there, you have a better atmosphere. And when the atmosphere is better, it looks better for the marketing people.
I know where you're going. Say it.
So who does that leave? Who else has the authority to choose a game time?
The one that complains about the fans the most.
So Lane Kiffin.
Breaking news. Lane Kiffin hates Ole Miss fans.
Lane Kiffin
send a tweet.
Has summarily forfeited his right to say anything about the size of the crowd for the season opener against Mercer.
Agreed.
Now, again, I don't know any of this. That's deductive reasoning. That's 2 + 2 usually equals 4. That's connecting the dots. That's just kind of using my brain a little bit. But I can give you a bunch of reasons why Keith Carter or the marketing department would want to play the game at night. I feel confident saying that the chancellor doesn't really care and isn't really going to get involved in that decision. I don't know who else would have the authority, so that tells me the head football coach wanted to play the game at 1. 5. So I asked the question before the break, what possible reason could Lane Kiffin have if indeed he is the person behind the decision to play this game at 1 o'clock, the season opener against Mercer? I don't know. We should go back real quick and give you the others. Then we'll go back to this topic. Week 2, Ole Miss at Tulane, 2:30 ESPN 2.
That's another one. Woo. New Orleans at 2:30.
It's on the road. You have no say so.
No say, and that's a real network game, of course. So, but if you are going down there, mix in a water with whatever drink you're having with brunch, because
pull the Ron Swanson. Are you getting fluids? Yes, plenty. Just pouring the bourbon. Put a little ice in there. It'll be fine.
I wonder who the announcing crew for that game would be. 2:30. Is that like the Mark Jones RG3 game?
know.
Might be. They said it's ABC?
Well, it's ESPN2.
It could be.
Yeah, we'll see. Whatever.
Could be. Yeah.
And then week 3, there's your
home
game.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, week 3, Saturday, September 16th, 6:30 kickoff, SEC Network, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech.
And
if you're a State fan wondering, there, like, how is Ole Miss, Georgia Tech at 6:30, but State LSU, the 11 a.m. game is picked before the 6:30 game is. So.
Yeah, that's the SEC Network game. That's like the 5th pick or something.
The 5th pick, yeah, something like that.
Kind of throw that one away. But barring a slip-up at Tulane, that should be a pretty massive crowd and big day. I know it's Georgia Tech, but still.
Yeah, that'll be a fun weekend. You might be a little less hot. I mean, who knows?
I mean, the sun will at least be going down at that point. At least shortly thereafter.
Yeah, shortly thereafter. Shaq Bully says, why don't you ask Lane yourself, or are you scared? If you're scared, say you're scared. Yeah, when we visit with Lane Kiffin at SEC Media Days in July, I'll ask him, hey, what's up with playing at 1 o'clock in the season opener? I'll do that. Happy to. And I'll probably phrase it just like that. Why on earth would you play at 1 o'clock?
Just throw it in, you jerk. Just throw it in.
Yeah. Is that Tulane game in the Dome? If not, fans will either be dying of heat or drowning in a flood. No in-between down there. That's from Jason. No, it is on campus at Yulman Stadium, 30,000-seat Yulman Stadium.
I know one guy that bought a season ticket, because if you look at the secondary market, tickets for that game are going to be expensive. But
they're not as bad as I thought they were going to be.
But he did buy a Tulane, for he and his wife, $77 each for season tickets. And they're going to go to that game and just sell the rest.
Well, they might not sell the rest.
For whatever they can get. But that he's like, hey, 77 is what I would pay for just the one game, so I might as well see if I can make $10 here or there for the rest of the season.
Think about it. If you had done that last year, it would have paid off, because if you were a season ticket holder, you would have had the first option to buy tickets for the conference championship game. Remember, they hosted the conference championship game.
And the Cotton Bowl, yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's big enough stadium. You're probably not going to make any money. But a 30,000-seat stadium for your conference championship game at your place, you make some money on those tickets. Yeah. That would have been a good investment.
I hope Willie Fritz pulls it off again.
Yeah. Do you? I kind of hope he doesn't pull it off at least in week 2. It's just me, though. Let's see here.
We've gotten this message a couple of times. Lane wants to get his players acclimated to the heat before Tulane. Then what is practice for? What is training camp for? I mean, you're telling me that the rationale, if that is in fact true, you're telling me that in order to play well at Tulane, you must play Mercer at 1 o'clock. Otherwise, you might give yourself a disadvantage. Then what is the 4 weeks of training camp for? And if you can't beat Tulane because you played Mercer at 6:30 instead of 1, you going to win a single SEC game this year? You get Vanderbilt at home, so maybe, but they're going to be better. Beat Florida last year. I mean, is that
might
really
be hot?
Hey, what are we talking about here? Is that really worth the giant middle finger to your fans? Is that really worth that? No, it's not. It shouldn't be anyway.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And look, I mean, maybe his rationale is different. 2023 Tulane football season tickets. Still trying to there they are. Find tickets. What's the price on these things? Just go to their website right now. Purchase by price. Get in the door for $77 for the season.
Yeah.
Wow. Up to $500, depending on where you are. Okay.
You're just sitting in the Hullabaloo Club, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's called that. I'm just making an assumption.
I love their Hullabaloo cheer. It's cool.
the Meweldy Moore club level.
Yeah. I mean, are you trying to buy 4 extra hours of preparation? That doesn't make sense. I mean, Georgia's got an ESPN Plus game in week 1 that they're playing at 5 o'clock Eastern time, and then they play at 11 the next week. And I don't know, man.
These are a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old guys out there. They're fine. They get enough recuperation.
Yeah.
Especially week 1 to week 2. It's not like this was the end of the season where you're trying to, squeeze every second out of it.
Dude, I remember the first high school football game my senior year. It mattered less the 2 years before because I didn't actually get to play, or at least very sparingly. But our first game my senior year, it was like a 7 or a 7:30 kickoff. I've never sweat in my life the way I sweat that day, that night. Hot, humid, thick. You go out for pregame warm-ups and the sun's still blazing, so you're drenched, and then it's just thick and humid for the rest of the day. So, yeah, but the point I'm making is there's no difference in the heat between – there's a little bit of a difference in the heat between 7 o'clock and 1 o'clock, but not a lot.
My senior year, we played a triple header. It was us and then Vicksburg and then Warren Central. And for some reason, they made the team that had the fewest players and had most of the guys playing both ways go first. So a 3 o'clock kickoff the first weekend of August, or the last weekend of August, wearing a purple jersey. I remember it was 102 on the field. And it was hot. And Brian, trying to be cool, had gone and bought one of those visors that you couldn't see in my helmet. I was dying in there, man. I only had half the breathing space. It was awful.
Not a lot of
Took
breathability.
it off after that. My mom got really mad at me. She's like, why'd you? I was like, I'll never wear that again. What a waste of time.
No, you got to one of those November games and you wish you still had it, maybe.
Nah, the November, just get through it, man. Gee, it's so cold.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we go. This is what the message. Lane wants his players to get acclimated to the heat before Tulane.
Yeah, that's what I read earlier.
I just no.
Buddy in D'Iberville said maybe it's homecoming that day, and that's why he wants to play the game at 1. That'd be something to have homecoming in week 1 of the season. It'd be kind of hard to have your homecoming elections during the first week of classes.
Yeah. Back to what you said earlier, though. You're exactly right. If he doesn't make a single comment about the fans and their attendance after the game, then whatever, man. You made it a little bit harder on your school to pay your $9 million salary, but okay. But if after the game he says something like he did after the Tulsa game last year, it's not going to go the same as it did last year, where people largely ignored it, or it's kind of like, whatever. Okay, Lane. Or even some people are like, oh, he's just trying to hold us accountable. That it's not going to go that way this time. If you say one negative thing about fan attendance after this, then I don't know what fans can do, but it will not be received the same as it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Not anywhere close.